Conditions are quickly improving across the Atlantic as the odds for development continue to increase in the Gulf. What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. All right, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to discuss with you today. The NHC just increased their chances for tropical development off the coast of Texas and Louisiana, and we're also looking at conditions continuing to improve across the main development region, the Caribbean, and other parts of the Atlantic Basin as well. Definitely seeing some more moisture, seeing some more wind shear reduction as well. So we're going to be going over everything of the sorts for you guys today. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive right into it. Starting off with this is our National Hurricane Center latest advisory. This is what we got for you guys right here. The system is currently over in Mexico right here. It's currently inland Mexico, and is expected to reemerge in the northwestern Gulf region as well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and read out this advisory. We now have a 30% chance of development. That was at 20% yesterday. We're now up to 30. So let's go ahead and read this out and see what the NHC is talking about this. A trough of low pressure located over northeastern Mexico is producing disorganized shower and thunderstorm activity. Development is not expected during the next day or so, while the trough remains inland and drifts northward over northeastern Mexico or southern Texas, the Rio Grande Valley to be more exact. The system is then forecast to move northeast, and it could reemerge over the northwestern Gulf region late Tuesday or Wednesday, where environmental conditions may support some development around midweek. Regardless of formation chances, heavy rainfall and flash flooding are possible across portions of eastern and southeastern Texas and Louisiana this week. 30% chance of formation in the next 7 days. So that's the situation that we got for you guys going on with the National Hurricane Center. We have some ensembles and the operational runs we're going to talk about very briefly. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. So here are the ensemble runs for you guys right here. This is the European. This is the 0Z from last night. This is already 24 hours out. So this is in effect for tonight. And this is going to be kind of a time frame as to how the system is going to move and how it's going to potentially impact a lot of areas moving forward. So let's go ahead and go out 12 hours. So this will be for tomorrow morning at this current point, taking a quick gander at that. So what we got for you guys, not too much movements going on. You're definitely starting to see those low pressure systems starting to re-emerge on the ensemble run. And then as we go to 48 hours out, it shifts further up to the north. So definitely going to want to watch that and keep an eye on that moving forward. And then as we start to get to Tuesday, starting off with Tuesday morning, you're seeing more of this system start to shift a bit further to the east and head towards the Gulf Coast. If it does that, then it has a decent chance of potential reorganization and potential development, in my opinion, and I'll show you why in just a second. 72 hours out, here's what we got. This is for Tuesday night. Already seeing the system really starting to reemerge literally off the coast of Brownsville, between Brownsville and Corpus Christi. Already starting to ramp up in terms of the intensity. It takes advantage of some of the warmer waters right here. And then as we go ahead and get to Wednesday morning, let's go ahead and pull this up. By Wednesday morning, you're already seeing a lot more ensembles picking up either just on the coast of Texas or moving into the Gulf region right here. Either way, the water's plenty warm enough for tropical development, but I will warn you that at least for right now, this system is going to be pretty broad. So you might see these low pressures. You might see the power numbers right here, 983, for example. You might see that and go, oh my goodness, this actually looks like a pretty powerful storm. But this is going to be a rather large and broad system for the time being, which is why you're not seeing your max wind speeds go up to potential hurricane strength right here. And that's why they're holding off at about 50 to 60 miles per hour, according to the legend right here. So that's what we're paying attention to moving forward. And then as we get to Wednesday night, things definitely get a bit more interesting. You're still going to see these ensembles pulling either just on the coast or moving into the Gulf region right here. Still, if you're watching from Houston, you're watching from Beaumont, watching from Port Arthur, Corpus Christi, Brownsville, even in areas like Shreveport, Louisiana, as this moves further inland, in areas like Lake Charles as well. You're going to want to pay attention to this and take this very seriously. This poses a significant flash flooding threat, and if the system moves further out into the Gulf region, then you're going to have a scenario where the water temperatures are going to potentially allow for those wind speeds to increase as well. So that's another situation we're watching. Let's go ahead and go to, I believe this is Thursday morning. Right here, definitely seeing a lot of pop associated with it, a lot of power, especially if it heads towards the Gulf over here. But ultimately, a lot of these ensembles are kind of split on whether it's going to be moving just inland, mainly into parts of Texas right here, or if it's going to be just off the coast of Texas right here. And that's kind of the main key that we're seeing right here. I have noticed, though, the models have shifted further and further and further away from land and further into the coast. So that's kind of part of the reason why I think the NHC increased your odds development for you guys over there. So that's something that we're paying attention to. But ultimately, you have a rapidly evolving situation that's going to start unfolding, and you're definitely going to be seeing a lot of rainfall and some pretty significant windfall possibilities if it stays over water. Now we're going to go ahead and shift over to our operational. Here is the Western Atlantic for the European. Let's go ahead and shift this over right here, and we'll go ahead and talk about what may be happening over the next 5 days. So here's what we have for the European. Not really showing too much going on until it emerges off the Gulf Coast over here. And then as it kind of interacts with that frontal boundary, you start seeing the systems trying to get its act together, organizing and developing right off the coast of Texas right here before making landfall. According to the European, it wants it to make landfall near Matagorda Bay, from what I've seen, and maybe likely, I believe that's closer to Brazoria County as well, before moving inland. And just to preface, there is something wrong with this, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. In fact, I'm showing you this right now. This system is really ramping up in intensity, 980 millibar system by the time it crosses into the Texas-Louisiana border. Now, for a tropical cyclone, there is a lot wrong with this. First of all, tropical cyclones don't typically, from my recollection, they don't intensify like that over land. What's going on with this is, I believe the Europeans really overdoing what is known as the brown ocean effect situation right here. What brown ocean effect is basically any rainfall or storm surge that hugs the coast of anywhere a hurricane makes landfall. It allows, it pretty much reuses that water to maintain its intensity or slow down its weakening phase as it moves further inland. An infamous case of this was Hurricane Ida back in 2021. Where it made landfall as a 150-mile-per-hour Category 4 hurricane near Port Fourchon, which is just outside of New Orleans. But brown ocean effect allowed it to remain a Category 3 hurricane for, I believe, 4 or 5 hours. It was still a major hurricane as the outer Iowa was passing over New Orleans, but then it started weakening pretty quickly after a period of about 12 hours or so. So that's kind of what we're dealing with, and this is kind of what the European is kind of overdoing right here. What you normally don't see is brown ocean effect causing intensification over land like this. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing right here. I think the dynamics and the physics of it until it makes landfall makes sense, but it doesn't make sense once it moves over land and starts intensifying like that. That's most likely not going to happen right here, but I do want to emphasize that very quickly. What I do also want to emphasize is, okay, what's our wind shear and dry air going to look like? Here is the wind shear, ladies and gentlemen. Wind shear is definitely kind of interesting right here. You do see an increase of shear across parts of Texas, Louisiana, and the Gulf region further to the east, but you are noticing a bit of a pocket right here that does start to emerge. I'm noticing a very slim pocket over here that kind of emerges. I'm noticing it pretty much from the Veracruz region in Mexico all the way to around Corpus Christi, and I am a bit curious to see how that expands. and how it interacts right here. But ultimately, you do have this situation. You do have the system moving through, I'd say, about a good 30 to 40 knots of wind shear, unless that shear pocket starts to emerge and moves further to the east right here, and then kind of before making landfall in either Texas or Louisiana right here. So you're definitely going to be battling some wind shear, mainly due to that frontal boundary right here. So ultimately, I'm not necessarily too excited with this right here, but with the warm waters that are over the Gulf right here, if we do see some convection really starting to ramp up, and if this system can battle the shear, then I wouldn't necessarily be too surprised if we do see some tropical development. But that all plays attention to the wild card of this situation, and that is our dry air aspect. What's the dry air going to look like? Well, taking a quick gander at it, starting about 72 hours out, you have a pretty good moisture pocket for this system to work with. Yes, you have the frontal boundary over here in parts of Texas and the upper south. That's going to be moving further to the south towards the Gulf right here. But if convection continues to fire and the system starts to get its act together, kind of what the European is forecasting right here, kind of cleans out any of that dry air business and keeps it away from a potential core of this system, then you'll have a scenario where ultimately, like, the dry air aspect of it won't make too much of a difference unless the wind shear starts to kind of ramp up on the western side and starts to chip away at the structure. But it looks to me that it's going to be more eastern lopsided for me at this current point in time. So ultimately, you are seeing that dry air aspect of it. It's definitely a bit risky right here, but as long as it stays outside of the center of the system, and as long as the system produces enough convection, then you're going to have a situation where tropical development is more possible. Am I saying that a huge hurricane is going to hit Texas in the next few days? Absolutely not. No. What I am saying is the chances have definitely increased in spite of the wind shear, and the main reasons for that are the water temperature, and it appears that there's that moisture pocket that's helping that as well. So you'll have to pay attention to it. Regardless of development, heavy impacts are still going to be expected across parts of Texas and Louisiana, and we'll continue to keep you updated as time continues to progress. But we're going to go ahead and shift the scene over to the Atlantic once again, because I do want to go over a few things on that once again. In yesterday's video, we talked about, okay, what are the conditions looking like moving forward, and could we see some tropical development in the future? Well, we talked about the U-wind component and how the trade winds are going to be weakening, and what that's going to do is it's going to decrease the wind shear in especially the main development region and parts of the Caribbean, and it's also going to start seeing the water temperatures really start to surge over there as well. Well, we're definitely noticing that across much of the Atlantic, and let's go ahead and start by showing our water temperatures for right now. And taking a quick gander at our water temperatures, things continue to ramp up. Yesterday, we had a few pockets of water temperatures around 26 degrees Celsius. Now it's shifted over a good, I'd say, 100 miles to the east since this time yesterday. So you're definitely seeing that water temperature starting to surge across parts of the Atlantic Basin and the main development region. Also noticing water temperatures continuing to increase in the Caribbean, especially the northwestern Caribbean, where areas off the coast of Cuba, the Bahamas, and Florida are seeing 30-plus degrees Celsius water temperatures, which for those of you who do not use the metric system is 86 degrees Fahrenheit. That is really warm, and that's kind of the water you would typically expect for areas in the tropics right here. Definitely still paying attention to it for sure. In the Gulf region, where the system's going to be emerging, 29 degrees Celsius water temperatures, definitely going to be enough to produce some convection for you guys over in Texas and in Louisiana. So that's something we're paying attention to. Across the MDR, also noticing water temperatures starting to increase further up to the north as well. Those 24, 25 Celsius, which is about 75 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit, you're definitely seeing that retreat further up to the north as more of this warm water really starts to take advantage, and it likely will continue to take more advantage of it as those trade winds continue to weaken over the next week or so, and things really start to ramp up in that part of the main development region. So we're getting a little bit, the doors cracking up a little bit more, and we're definitely getting a little more open for business in the next few weeks based on this alone. And taking a quick gander at our climate reanalyzer, we still have a long way to go. Look at this. We're very close to 2025 levels in terms of our water temperatures. And I would not be surprised if in the next couple of weeks we eclipse that and move a bit closer to the 2023 or 2024 levels if those models with the trade winds continue to hold across much of the Atlantic. So that's what we're dealing with right here, kind of seeing a bit of a water temperature surge war going on from what we had last year compared to what we're seeing this year. So definitely something that we're paying attention to for sure. And the water temperature anomalies as well are definitely interesting too. Seeing above average water temperatures in the subtropics, seeing some below average in parts of the Atlantic basin over here, mainly north of the main development region. But those above average temperatures are really starting to ramp up across the Cabo Verde Islands, the main development region, and in parts of the Caribbean as well. We're definitely seeing that increase in anomaly surge. And I can also show you this map right here, kind of emphasizing that. Here is the water temperature anomaly change over the last 7 days. The biggest increases have been in the eastern Gulf and in the main development region. It's a bit scattered in parts of the central MDR, but in the western MDR, right off the Caribbean coast, definitely seeing that increase right here. Same with the Cabo Verde Islands over here. A bit closer to the coast of Africa has kind of dropped to the below average phase over here, but by and large, we're starting to warm up across much of these regions, and we're going to want to pay attention to how things will progress going forward. Another thing we're going to need to pay attention to as well is our ocean heat content. OHC continues to be a pretty big factor for tropical development, and taking a quick gander at this, first of all, the loop current is starting to get a bit more diverse, and it's starting to get a bit more ramped up as well. We're already at around 75 to 100 OHC in that region. And then as we get to parts of the Caribbean, we get increased to about 150 OHC in a couple of areas right here. That is only going to continue to increase moving forward. Also noticing this OHC shifting further and further up to the north. Just out of my own curiosity, I want to see what we were at this point last week. Here's where we were last week right here. Not too much was going on. Definitely a lot more concentrated, not as much in parts of the Gulf region, parts of the Caribbean. MDR was a lot further to the south as well. Same thing in parts of the Atlantic basin. Here's where we go at, for this week right here. Boom. More OHC everywhere in the Gulf, in the Caribbean, further up in the basin. You're definitely seeing a bit of a surge in parts of the Atlantic over here in the main development region too. Definitely seeing that increase really starting to ramp up. And you can also use that to illustrate how much the water temperatures have warmed up too, because yes, the water temperatures are warm, but those warmer waters are only getting deeper and deeper down into parts of the into the water right there, and that's only going to be increasing your fuel tank for parts of the for especially in August and September when hurricane season, at least climatologically, ramps up. I don't know how much that's going to happen with the El Nino that's going to be in effect for this year, but we'll have to see what happens as those months progress. I do want to go ahead and go to the model runs right here, because one thing that we did not talk about yesterday was the dry air aspect of it, because we do have the Sahara air layer that's going to be moving through parts of the main development region and in parts of the Atlantic basin as well. What's your Sahara air layer looking like? Well, it's still going to be relatively dry across much of the tropics for the next few days or so, but as time continues to progress, we do see a bit of a surge of dry air, but you're definitely noticing a little bit more of a scattering. I'm noticing you're definitely noticing more moisture across parts of the Atlantic basin, across parts of the subtropics as well. It kind of gets a bit more scattered, I would say, after we get to about a week out or so. Definitely. So ultimately, you're definitely noticing that moisture increase across parts of the Atlantic, especially as we get towards late June. But just to kind of emphasize this, let's take a look at our precipitable water anomaly as well. Precipitable water anomaly is pretty simple. How much more moisture do we have than the climatological average? Well, taking a quick gander at this, let's go ahead and start right now. Definitely seeing a bit of a moisture surge in comparison to the average across parts of the MDR right now and in parts of the Atlantic basin as well. And that is going to continue to progress across much of the next week or so. You're seeing a lot more moisture than average across parts of the main development region, as well as you're not seeing still seeing your Sahara air, don't get me wrong, but it looks to me that it's going to be a little bit less until we get to about 9 days out with that surge. But my goodness, I have not necessarily seen a precipitable water anomaly chart like that since I think 2024, I think June 2024. right there. So we'll have to definitely pay attention to it, but we definitely have a lot more moisture to work with now than we did last year for sure. And we'll continue to keep you updated with all these threats here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. Feel free to join the Storms United Discord server. Link to that is in the end screen. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.